Good evening. I'm Jack Bradley filling in here for Steve Lance. Before we get into the historic strikes on Israel today, some breaking news. President Biden just signed the Enhanced Presidential Security Act. This means that the U.S. Secret Service will give major presidential and vice presidential candidates the same amount of protection as presidents and vice presidents. The bill passed both chambers of Congress shortly after the second assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. And tensions continue to escalate in the Middle East after Iran launches nearly 200 missiles at Israel. Israel's air defense systems intercepted many of them while Israeli citizens took cover. NTD's Jason Perry has the latest.
On Tuesday, Israel was on high alert as they said an Iranian missile attack was imminent. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told residents to make sure they follow the relevant safety instructions.
I ask you for two things. One, to strictly obey the directives of the Home Front Command. It saves lives. And second, to stand together. We will stand firm together in the testing days ahead.
And soon after, missiles were seen in the air over Jordan, which were fired towards Israel. Onlookers appeared to clap their hands in support of the launch. And in Israel, sirens could be heard as missiles were seen over Tel Aviv and as Israel's air defense systems intercepted them. And over Jerusalem as well, several missiles were intercepted in the sky. President Biden directed the U.S. military to help Israel defend itself against Iranian attacks and to shoot down missiles targeting Israel. Israeli forces gave an update after the attack.
As we can see, a few hits with no casualties because of the responsible behavior of the public. Them listening to instructions and the operating of our defense systems, as well as the activity of our partners for the protection of the citizens of Israel.
This is the second time Iran has launched a barrage of projectiles at Israel this year. The first time was in April when Iran launched missiles and drones at Israel, most of which were intercepted, according to Israeli forces. Iran's supreme leader is currently in a secure location, according to Reuters, citing a senior Iranian official. And many are wondering how Israel will respond to this latest attack. Israel said that attack will have consequences and that they have plans and will act at a place and time of their choosing. Jason Perry, NTD News.
To dive into the impacts of Iran's missile attacks on Israel, we're joined now by Shahrzad Ghanay, the publisher and CEO of the Epoch Times Persian edition. Shahrzad Ghanay, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, today we've seen Iran launch several missiles into Israel. Are you surprised by this?
I would say let's go back to 2020 when Qasem Soleimani was killed by U.S. Qasem Soleimani was the general and commander of Quds forces, which belongs to IRGC, and they were killed by command of President Trump at the time. And what Iran did after that, or actually Islamic Republic did after that, was launching missiles to Iraq on U.S. forces. But when we look at the damage, they were really minimum or almost no damage. Then we go back to the time that Israel attacked the consulate of Islamic Republic in Syria and killed some of its forces. What Iran did was launching like more than 300 missiles and drones to Israel. But again, it was announced before launching the missiles. And again, there were minimum damages to Israel. So I want to even go back further to some decades ago. In 1979, from the first day of Islamic Republic, their slogan and their strategy is to eradicate Israel. So they started to have make some proxy groups who support Islamic Republic. And what happened after that was that they sent their proxies to attack Israel. So Islamic Republic itself never encountered Israel directly. And never wanted to. So right now, like all these slogans are more like empty talks.
Then what explains the fact that we're seeing the attacks back in April directly from Iran that were mostly intercepted by Israel and its allies, the U.S. included, and then these most recent attacks directly from Iran?
The reason is that for years they're talking about eradicating Israel, and they're like, it's more like a slogan and empty talks. But when proxies are getting in a very bad shape, they are weaker, and when we are seeing deaths of Ismail Haniyeh, they are saying deaths of Hassan Nasrallah, they have to show to their supporters that they are doing something. But when they do something, there's basically minimum damage.
Is there a concern that this attack that we're seeing today could be larger than what we saw in April, possibly overwhelming Israel and its allies from catching most of them?
Well, certainly yes, and what we are seeing is that before launching these missiles, what Israel military and also U.S. Secretary of Defense said was that if there is going to be attack from Iran, there are going to be serious consequences. And I think Islamic Republic is putting its existence at risk right now. And this damage, if there are serious damage, we believe that Israel is going to have some responses that Iran cannot afford.
Well, we're seeing, of course, on top of that, that the Prime Minister of Russia and the leader of Iran announced that they met on Monday. This comes in the wake of all of this, the draining resources both in Russia and Iran. Now, Hezbollah was one of Iran's strongest allies in the Middle East. Now, is Iran looking to shore up more support for more potential attacks against Israel? And then also, considering all this, Russia relies mostly on the Chinese regime for its defense industrial supply, its war machine against Ukraine. With these powers, Iran, Russia, and China working together, what could the future of all this mean?
Visit of Prime Minister of Russia to Iran is considered, experts say it's more like a gesture of Russia that shows to the United States that amidst all these tensions in Middle East, they still want to support Iran, because Iran is a country that provides missiles and provides drones to Russia and is supporting Russia in the war with Ukraine. But at the same time, China has a lot of benefits through its relation to Saudi Arabia, especially on oil. Yes, for sure, it's buying Iran's oil as well. It's just not considering sanctions and buying Iran's oils, but its relation with Saudi Arabia, it comes on top priority than in Iran. It also supports Iran because it enjoys having tensions inside the Middle East, and because the tensions inside Middle East distracts Western countries, especially US, from what might come up as a war in the future with China. But at the same time, most analysis says that there probably wouldn't be a big support from China to Islamic Republic. Islamic Republic cannot count on China's support because there are a lot of other elements to consider if there is a war in the Middle East, that China is not going to back up Iran. On the other hand, we can see that right now Russia is busy with the war with Ukraine, and this visit mostly is considered as something that they say they want to support Iran. During the visit they talked about expansion and cooperation more on economics, on energy, infrastructure, but at the same time it more had a message. But for sure, we cannot say how much really Russia can afford another war while they are really right now a little bit behind in Ukraine.
Shahrzad Ghaneh, thank you very much for that insight here today.
Thank you for having me.
Senator J.D. Vance and Governor Tim Walz face off tonight in the only scheduled vice presidential debate. That's with 34 days to go until Election Day. Both candidates look to move the needle in a very tight race here. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has more on this story.
For the first time in almost 3 decades, both vice presidential candidates are veterans, and both have served or are serving in Congress. Governor Tim Walz and Senator J.D. Vance have been baiting each other for weeks over Tuesday's debate.
I absolutely want to debate Tim Walz.
And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see.
Tim Walz's record is a joke. He's been one of the most far-left radicals in the entire United States government at any level.
House Majority Whip and Congressman Tom Emmer from Minnesota has been helping J.D. Vance prepare for his debate, stepping in the role of Tim Walz during prep sessions.
When people focus on the issues, and the issues are very clear for the American people, Donald Trump had a great economy, lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. I think it was half a century. He had families making $6,000 more in wages over the course of his tenure in his first term.
On the Democratic side, Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg is stepping in as J.D. Vance during Governor Tim Walz's debate prep sessions. One of the issues Walz is expected to prepare for is to have his military record put on the spotlight. Republicans accuse Governor Walz of misrepresenting his service and highlight that he retired from service just before his unit was sent into combat.
Well, look, so here's Governor Walz, who enlisted. He signed up for the National Guard when he was 17. He served for 24 years. What I would expect him to say is that he's proud of his service, and he has continued to serve the country in all the ways that he can. And I mean, meanwhile, you've got Donald Trump showing up at Arlington Cemetery and desecrating hallowed ground. So I don't think that they have a leg to stand on when it comes to accusing Tim Walz of anything.
Governor Tim Walz and Senator J.D. Vance will face off in New York City during a 90-minute debate. It is expected that over 50 million people will tune in to watch both vice presidential candidates. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
Tonight, Vice Presidential candidates Tim Walz and J.D. Vance are facing off for a debate in New York City. Tune in for the CBS News Vice Presidential debate tonight starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS or simulcast on NTD. NTD will also have on-the-ground coverage, in-depth analysis, and a lot more during our pre- and post-debate show presented by Steve Lance and Tiffany Meyer. So don't miss our coverage tonight starting at 8 p.m. Eastern right here on NTD. And coming up, multiple departments of the U.S. government are now responding to Iran's attack, including comments about possible consequences for the regime. A global catastrophe. That's what former President Trump is warning as he responds to the latest Iranian attack on Israel. What he's vowing to do as foreign policy is set to be in the spotlight at the VP debate. That and more when we return.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.